Imagine a planet without borders. No passport lines, no fences cutting across deserts, no walls rising between neighbors. Instead, humanity would stand together on a shared land, one vast home that belongs to everyone. The Earth would not be divided into countries, but embraced as a whole. Now picture that every human being also spoke a single language. No misunderstandings because of grammar, no misinterpretations of culture through words, no mistranslation of emotions. When you spoke, anyone on the planet could understand you instantly, from a farmer in Kenya to an engineer in Japan, from a poet in Chile to a child in Canada. This vision is not only about communication, but about unity. Imagine how much conflict arises today from miscommunication, from mistrust, from seeing others as foreign. Borders and languages are two of the strongest markers of difference, shaping identities, dividing populations, creating suspicion. Without them, an entirely new dynamic emerges, a civilization that identifies not as fragmented nations but as one global humanity. Such a shift would not erase culture. Local traditions, songs, foods, and rituals could flourish even more, because they would no longer be tools of separation. The universal language would allow you to share a folk story from your village with someone on the other side of the world, and they would grasp its full meaning, its nuance, its rhythm. Culture would expand like a river flowing freely across the globe, enriching everyone equally. Economics would transform. Today, trade barriers, tariffs, and geopolitical rivalries slow down collaboration. In a borderless world, resources could flow where they are most needed. Food surpluses in one region could easily support areas facing drought. Medical expertise could move without visas or political obstacles. The efficiency of humanity working as a single cooperative network would be astonishing. Think of scientific collaboration, no longer confined by funding tied to nations or limited by linguistic silos. Knowledge would spread instantly across the globe. A medical breakthrough in India could be applied in Brazil within hours, without translation or waiting for policy approval. Space exploration, renewable energy, climate engineering, all could advance at speeds unimaginable today, because humanity would act as one research team rather than fragmented competitors. But beyond practicality, the emotional dimension is perhaps the most powerful. Without borders, we would not grow up learning who is us and who is them. There would be no national anthem teaching you to glorify one flag over another. Children would instead learn to see every human face as family. They would recognize difference in skin, clothing, and custom, but never as division, only as variety within the same shared humanity. Education would change profoundly. In today's world, textbooks are divided not only by languages but also by political agendas. History looks different in each country, often rewritten to glorify one group while downplaying another. In a unified world with one language, knowledge would not be filtered through national lenses. Instead, education could present a collective story of humanity, tracing how we evolved together, how civilizations rose and fell, and how interconnected we have always been. Children everywhere would read the same science, the same literature, the same stories of compassion and resilience. A child in Ghana could learn the poetry of Shakespeare or the philosophy of Confucius without needing a translator, absorbing every nuance directly. Likewise, a student in France could dive into African oral traditions or South American myths without barriers. The library of humanity would truly be shared, not fractured by language divides. The global classroom would foster empathy. Imagine students in different continents engaging in live discussions, not struggling through foreign phrases but conversing seamlessly. They could collaborate on projects to clean oceans, explore space, or study ancient ruins. Education would become less about competition between nations and more about cooperation to advance human potential. Borders today are also linked to conflict. Wars are often fought over territory, resources, or power defined by lines on a map. In a world without borders, the very reasons for war would weaken dramatically. If land belongs to all, if water and air belong to all, then there is no enemy across the fence. There is only a neighbor across the street, even if that street is oceans away. The military, as we know it, would shrink or disappear. The vast budgets poured into weapons and defense could be redirected toward health, education, and infrastructure. The global economy would experience an extraordinary release of resources, suddenly free to address poverty, disease, and environmental challenges. The absence of language barriers would also reduce fear. Misunderstandings that once escalated into hostility would instead become conversations. Leaders could negotiate directly without translators, reducing the risk of manipulation or mistrust. More importantly, ordinary people could talk directly to each other across the globe, building relationships that bypass political propaganda. Of course, challenges would remain. Human nature includes fear of difference, and unity does not erase ego or ambition. Even in a world without borders, people might create new divisions, by profession, by ideology, by wealth. A universal language could be misused for propaganda on a planetary scale. Power would not disappear simply because lines on a map vanish. But the opportunity for transparency would be stronger. Lies spread less easily when everyone can communicate directly with everyone else. Propaganda loses power when truth can travel without translation barriers. The shared language would create an environment where accountability is global. A corrupt practice in one region could be exposed instantly to the entire planet. Culture would still create diversity, but it would be celebrated rather than feared. A global identity could coexist with local pride. You could still cheer for your hometown soccer team, enjoy your grandmother's recipes, or celebrate your community's traditions. But these would be threads in a greater tapestry, not flags to divide humanity. Think about migration. Today, millions are forced to leave homes due to war, poverty, or climate change, often facing hostility when they cross into new lands. In a borderless world, there would be no illegal immigrant. Every human would have the right to move, to seek opportunity, to live in dignity. Cities would grow as diverse mosaics, with neighborhoods enriched by traditions from every corner of the globe. Language would no longer isolate newcomers. A refugee arriving in a new community could instantly speak with doctors, teachers, and neighbors. The trauma of displacement would be softened by immediate belonging, because the language of comfort and survival would be the same everywhere. Economically, this mobility would balance inequality. People could move to regions where their skills are needed. Populations could shift more smoothly in response to climate change, ensuring survival without conflict. The planet itself would become a dynamic organism, with humanity flowing like blood in veins, nourishing where needed. Art and creativity would flourish in ways we can barely imagine. Music already transcends borders, but words often limit poetry, theater, or novels. A universal language would allow the soul of every artist to resonate with every human being. Imagine reading a poem written in rural Mongolia and feeling it exactly as the poet intended, or watching a play written in Nigeria and understanding every emotional nuance without translation. Art would travel faster, inspiring revolutions of thought and beauty across continents. Films, literature, and theater would no longer need subtitles. Humor, one of the hardest things to translate, would finally be global. Humanity would laugh together, cry together, dream together. Technology would accelerate too. Today, engineers and programmers often face barriers when collaborating across nations. Open source communities already show the power of shared effort, but with a universal language and no national borders, innovation would become a truly planetary endeavor. AI, renewable energy, medicine, architecture, all fields would benefit from billions of minds working seamlessly together. The ethical challenges of technology would also be debated globally, in real time, by everyone. Instead of fragmented regulations, humanity could decide together how to handle artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, or space colonization. For the first time in history, morality could become a shared project rather than a patchwork of conflicting laws. Environmentally, a borderless humanity would recognize the planet as one shared ecosystem. Today, pollution often shifts from one country to another. Rivers cross borders, winds carry smog, and climate change respects no passport. With one global society, environmental responsibility could be managed collectively. Deforestation in one region would be seen as a global emergency, not a local affair. Renewable energy projects could be coordinated across continents without negotiation between rival states. Imagine a worldwide network of solar farms, ocean cleaning operations, and reforestation campaigns. No country would sabotage agreements for the sake of short-term gain, because the well-being of the Earth would be the well-being of everyone. A world without borders, with one shared language, would not be a utopia without challenges. But it would be a world closer to harmony, where human potential could be unlocked to its fullest. The barriers that divide us today, geographical, political, linguistic, would no longer distract us from the larger truth. That we are one species, sharing one planet, with one destiny. In this vision, wars would fade, cultures would bloom, science would accelerate, and empathy would deepen. Humanity would finally be able to direct its energy not toward guarding lines on a map, but toward nurturing life, exploring the universe, and becoming stewards of the Earth. And perhaps, in this borderless world with one voice, we would finally hear the quiet truth that has always bound us together. That love, kindness, and understanding are the true universal language, one we were always meant to share.